Gestational caloric restriction improves redox homeostasis parameters in the brain of Wistar rats. My name is Leo Helz Oliveira, and the teacher who oriented me in this work is Cristiane Maté. The objective of this work was to evaluate the impact of 20% caloric restriction during pregnancy and to determine its impacts on the redox status of the offspring's prefrontal cortex. The experiment was divided into two groups, the control group and the caloric restriction group. The control group received a standard commercial chow, while the caloric restriction group received the same chow as the control group, but with a reduction of 20%. And on top of that, the caloric restriction group received a daily micronutrient supplementation in order to equalize micronutrient consumption between both groups. The caloric restriction protocol was submitted throughout the entire course of the pregnancy, and on postnatal days 0, 7, 21, and 60, the male pups were euthanized and the prefrontal cortex was collected. We've evaluated the total amount of oxidants through the dichlorofluorescein oxidation. We've also evaluated the activity of the enzymes SOD, CAT, GPX, GRX, and TRXR. And we've also evaluated the content of GSH, vitamin C, MDA, sulfhydryl, and carbonyl. The caloric restriction pregnant dams had a lower weight gain throughout the experiment in comparison to the control pregnant dams. On postnatal day 0, we've observed an increase in the total amount of oxidants, and on postnatal day 7, it decreased. SOD was only activated on postnatal day 60. CAT activity was higher at postnatal day 7, and it was activated once again on postnatal day 60. GRX activity, just like SOD, it was only activated on postnatal day 60. TRXR activity was higher at postnatal day 0, and on postnatal day 60 was activated once again. GSH content was decreased at postnatal day 0, and it increased on postnatal day 60. Vitamin C was higher on postnatal day 60. MDA content was decreased at postnatal day 7, and it kept at lower concentrations throughout the experiment. We observed through the levels of DCFH oxidation an increase in the oxidant species in the early life, and as a possible consequence of this event, it happened the so-called hormetic adaptation of the antioxidant system. The word hormetic adaptation, it comes from the concept of hormesis that says about a duality in the effect of a certain substance. This substance in this case is the oxidant species that in higher concentrations, it is undoubtedly harmful to the human species, whereas at lower concentrations, it could promote that response from the antioxidant system, culminating in a better redox status. We've also observed a decrease in the levels of lipid peroxidation through the levels of malondialdehyde, which is a marker of lipid peroxidation. And this is actually really interesting and important in the concept of brain development due to the high fat composition of this structure. So in this work, we demonstrated that a responsible 20% caloric restriction allied with micronutrient supplementation had modulatory effects on the redox status of the prefrontal cortex of the offspring. And those improvements could be possibly explained by the concept of hormesis that I've mentioned earlier, that says about a adaptation of the antioxidant system later in life in response to the moderate stress that happened earlier in life. Thank you for watching to my presentation.